Welcome back to Chat Shit. It's another season, so we've got another set of predictions, which will go awfully right for me and awfully wrong for Aiden, like they did last year. I don't remember if I got anything right or wrong. Aiden, tell us about the season.
Well, I think this season's going to be really interesting. We've got about 14 teams fighting for the top 8 spots. I think we've got big players entering their final year in Chad Warner, with WA clubs circling. Marcus Bontempelli's in contract discussions. Does he want to go and win another premiership? We have big player movements in the most recent off-season. Bailey Smith to Geelong, Daniel Rioli at Gold Coast. I mean, there are big teams that picked up big players.
Yeah, with your point about 14 teams competing, I reckon it's even more. I reckon everyone apart from Richmond and Carlton are competing for finals this year. So it's absolute. Like, you look at a team that probably would not be in your top 14 in your head, like maybe Gold Coast. It's finals or bust for them. Yeah. And they're probably, I don't know if they are a top 14 team.
I think they've been finals or bust for about 3 years now.
So they've busted a few times. But yeah, the big narratives, as you're saying, this year have been a lot of big player moves in the off-season, probably more than we've ever seen in one off-season. And for me, a lot of pre-season huge injuries. A lot of Brownlow contenders and superstars of the league going down early. Petrarca's still not there, and Bontempelli not playing. Errol Goulden's just gone out.
Mac Andrew, the new $10 million player, just went down.
But these are just four of like many stars that are out. So that'll shape the early season outcomes. And let's jump into our predictions for who's going to make the top 4 in what order, and who will be the wooden spoon.
So in order, my top 4, I think Brisbane are going to finish number 1 again. We're going to talk about someone that they managed to pick up in the off season in the draft, that somehow made their team better, coming even winning the flag last year. I've put the Swans at second. I think they're going to be motivated by that grand final heartbreak. I'm not looking at this. They're going to drop out of the top 8 like a lot of predictions that I have seen. I've got Geelong at number 3. I'm not going to underrate them again. We seem to, the last couple of years, we always do our own predictions. We make them finish around the 8th place or a little bit lower, but they always seem to surprise. And they have made a couple of movements. Bailey Smith, we talked about, and Chris Scott. He always seems to get it done. So I'm just going to put them high. And if they fail, then we're both going to be happy. Yeah. Right. And I put Hawthorn in 4. Now, if you take out the first 5 games or whatever of last season, they were basically first, second place. That's how well
it was. Sydney and Hawthorn. You look at the last 15 rounds of the year, it was Sydney and Hawthorn and everyone else.
So based on form, they were probably the best team going into finals last year. So I'm going to put them as to make top 4.
Look, I love that we've got a little bit of difference here. So just talking about a couple of yours, Brisbane, I think that they could easily make the top 4, but I don't want to put them there after the grand final that we've just seen. And also, I think that the loss of Joe Danaher, I'm a bit concerned for how they'll find their goals and what their forward dynamic will look like. And there's a lot of competition for top 4. There are sort of 6-7 teams that I think I all feel like have to be there.
Yeah.
And then the other one I don't have in there is Geelong, who, they're going to make the top 4, but I'm never going to say that out loud. So my top 4 is first, Sydney. As we spoke about in our previous video of our prediction for the Swans year, this is the best list in the AFL at their peak age now. This is their window. I think that a new coach is a great way to recover from a crippling grand final loss, and I think they go again. Second, GWS. I predicted Sydney and GWS to be the best 2 teams last year, and they just about almost were, apart from Brisbane. So I think GWS have an amazing list. They're in a similar place as Sydney in terms of their age profile, and they are really strong everywhere. I think they have, I said this last year, and I think it's the same now, they have a top 5 forward line, a top 5 midfield, and a top 5 back line in the competition. You look at Sam Taylor back there, they have the Coleman medalist up front with great players surrounding them, and then a strong midfield. Third place, Hawthorn. We both agree the sky's the limit for them this year.
So much talent.
Yeah, absolutely anything could happen with this Hawthorn season. With that much talent and picking up 2 experienced quality defenders as well.
Yeah, we haven't talked about that yet.
The way that can free up James Sicily, who in my mind is one of the most underrated players in the competition, and he's highly rated. So I think he's arguably a top 5 or top 10 player in the league, and he's freed up to do whatever the hell he likes now. And then in 4th place, I've got Fremantle. I absolutely loved their list last year. The one thing I was concerned about was their forward line. And yeah, I think their forward line was the reason they weren't top 4 last year. And then they've now got a season of development into a young star, Josh Tracy, and Jaya Miss as well. And then they've picked up Shea Bolton. I think that's absolutely huge. I think that's the biggest pickup in the competition wide in this off-season is Shea Bolton to Fremantle. I reckon if he's not injured, I can very well see him making All-Australian and having a huge impact up there.
I like it. I really wanted to put Fremantle, and we're going to talk about later is about overachievers and underachievers, but their list is looking really scary this season. I think it all falls on their key forwards.
Yeah, over the last couple of years, they've been arguably the best defence in the league. Then you look at their midfield, and they've got Sarong, Brayshaw, and Hayden Young all coming through, along with a phenomenal ruck pairing. And so it's all strong. It's now their forward line, which it all falls on, like you say.
So it looks like I'm backing experience and history, and you're backing rising talent. I like it. I like it. It's a bit different. We'll go into who we think is going to get the wooden spoon. I'm assuming we're going to have the same team here. I've gone Richmond. I mean, it wasn't really going to be anyone else.
Really?
But I mean, are they going to get a win this year? I know what we talked about last year is, I think, was it West Coast? If they were going to get a win, this is seriously a problem.
Yeah, I think I don't think I need to say who I have in the wooden spoon, but yeah, they're not looking good this year. They were really, really horrific last year, and they've lost a bunch of players. So this is like as deep as you can really get into a rebuild. They've got some really good new talent. Sam Layla, Josh Smiley.
Layla injured at the moment.
Yep.
Big draft pick.
No, but these are guys who are really good for a future rebuild, but this is not going to be their season.
It's going to be a really tough year for a big fan base.
Yeah, it will. Being that bad last year and losing Shea Bolton, Liam Baker, Jack Graham.
Yeah.
Who else did they lose? I don't know.
There were a couple of other, but those were the key.
Yeah, who knows if Tom Lynch will stay healthy this year.
Those were the key three. Look, I really hope for their sake they can get a win this year. But I don't know who they're beating at this current point in time.
Yeah.
But we'll move on to who we think is going to get the Brownlow, Coleman, the Rising Stars, and our dark horse for All Australian.
I'll start off with my Brownlow medalist. I really love to be exciting with these predictions, but I think everything is set in place for Nick Dacos to win his first Brownlow medal. He's my prediction. He's just a quality player who should have won it 2 years ago if he didn't get injured at the end of the year. And I think if the umpires get out of bed with Patrick Cripps, it should be Nick Dacos this year.
As history has said in this podcast, I like to back experience and what's been done, and you like to back the talent. Look, I'm going to back Cripps to win it again, get that historic third Brownlow win. He won by so many votes last year. Clearly, the umpires are seeing a lot more than we're seeing.
If he keeps getting 3 votes with 15 disposal games, I think he'll win the Brownlow as well.
As much as I'd love to be fun with it and put some guy, this is the Brownlow medal, this is who the umpires are going to notice, so I'm going to be boring. I'm going to say Patrick Cripps is going to win it.
Fantastic player. There's a reason he's respected by the umpires. He goes about his business better than anyone else, so could easily happen.
Yeah.
So, for my Coleman medalist, I have my brain prediction and my heart prediction.
Oh, I like it.
My brain prediction is Jesse Hogan. He won by a comfortable margin last year, and he's on a team which is just as good as they were. Jesse Hogan is, he's aged like fine wine. My heart prediction is Sam Darcy. I reckon he's that talented and that good that who knows that if this could just be the year that a superstar becomes one of the best in the league.
Look, I'd love to see your hot pick come true, and I know they've just locked him in until 2029. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, this has become. I mean, he broke out last year, but if he manages to do that, scary signs for a big player coming into his body that quickly. But I've gone Jeremy Cameron. I know he's getting on a bit.
You're just picking old blokes and old teams for everything.
I like to back experience.
We're not in 2018, man.
And I've put Geelong in the top 4. He's going to get a lot of chances. I think Bailey Smith is a massive addition. Especially running out of the middle and creating better opportunities for him. I think he'll be able to go one more time.
I've just realised, I reckon if I thought again, I probably would have gone Jeremy Cameron. I don't usually agree with you, but I've just realised that with Tom Hawkins gone, Jeremy Cameron's going to have to play further forward. He's the most talented key forward in the competition, and probably the only reason he hasn't been closer to the Coleman medal last year was that he was playing.
He worked a lot up the ground.
He was pretty much a wing, and he came second in the Coleman.
Yeah. So scary signs if he does just sit in the forward line and go about his business there.
Hard to stop.
We'll move into who we think is going to win the Rising Star, and we sort of touched on it earlier without saying his name for Brisbane, but I've gone with Levi Ashcroft.
And so have I.
Somehow, I mean, he would have been the number 1 draft pick, but teams for some reason didn't decide to pick him and make Brisbane match earlier. But he looks like a ready-made product already, better than his brother potentially at this period in his career.
It's so disgusting. The one thing, Brisbane won the premiership last year. If there was one thing that they want to shore up, it was their inside midfield depth. That was the one thing. And now they've got the best midfielder from the draft class just put in their lap. I reckon
best player from the draft class. It looks like.
I reckon this might wake the AFL up to balancing out the father. I understand the father son, and I do think it's a good thing, but there's got to be a bit more of a consideration into compensation. This is a team that's just won the premiership, and you've just handed them future Brownlow medalist possibly. Like, this guy is really seriously talented.
Yeah, what I've never been big on is how you can pick up these father-son picks and like the amount of points you need to generate in the draft. Like, they had picks, they were trading their 20s and 30s picks, which are still decent picks, but for like 40s and 50s. And if you can rack up enough of those picks between like pick 30 and pick 60, you get enough points for a guy that's going to be a father-son pick as would go pick number 1.
And I'm going to be honest, I don't see a huge amount of evidence in my time following AFL that having a pick 30 is a significant advantage over having a pick 45. Like, unlike American sports where they have these college systems which are followed by hundreds or thousands of scouts watching every game, there's still that scouting system in the AFL, but you have like guys that are superstars of the league. Your Luke Parkers, your some players that are absolutely the best players in the league that have gone as low as 50 or been undrafted. Like, I think there's got to be more thought into the father-son pick.
Yeah, they have to lose more if they want to gain a player of that quality. But we'll go into who we think our dark horse is. I know this is probably a most exciting part of the entire video, so I'll let you start. I
love the All-Australian team. There's something I really love about looking at how many times someone makes an All-Australian or if they make it. My dark horse is Isaac Quaynor. He had a fantastic year 2 years ago where I thought in 2023 he should have been in the All-Australian team. And they didn't pick him. And I reckon this year, Collingwood are poised to attack the top 4. They, along with Geelong, were the two teams I couldn't just squeeze into my top 4. I think Collingwood are going to win a lot of games, and Isaac Quaynor is going to be a massive impact player in the back pocket.
Yeah, I'm getting a bit of deja vu to last year because I think we both picked him as a guy to make his first All-Australian in this exact point. Yeah. But yeah, a big part of defenders is if their team does well, I feel. So if Collingwood can push up the ladder, and it looks like they might, he's gonna have a real chance. My dark horse, I've gone with Bailey Smith. I mentioned him earlier. He's been out for about 12. He was out for about 12 months. Hasn't played footy in quite a while. But I think the one player Geelong has missed, especially since Dangerfield started to age, was that guy that can take the ball and run with it out the middle. I think he's going to get a serious amount of touches. They have a lot of the grunt guys in the middle. In Atkins, Dangerfield will still get time doing that. And if he can run and start hitting forwards on the chest, I think he can maybe pick up that wing spot. But he also potentially, there's a lot of competition for an inside mid spot. But I think he has a chance to be there, especially if Geelong succeed this year.
I'll come back at you and say he's coming off a full season of being out.
Yeah.
To make the All-Australian team would be incredibly impressive.
And that's why we call it a dark horse.
Very true, very true. All right. So the next thing we're going to talk about is our surprise teams that we think will overachieve, essentially. And I'd say Hawthorn's one of mine, but I think everyone's expecting them to be that good.
Yeah.
So I've got two others. Fremantle, who I put in my top 4. I've just explained how I think their forward line has taken a huge step forward. And my other one is North Melbourne. I think the rebuild is finally starting to really come together. They have players all across the ground who are really talented. We have that midfield group which is really strengthened and gotten a year older. You pick up Caleb Daniel and Luke Parker, and then you have guys that shot out last year like Jackson Archer, Charlie Comben. These are really significant players who are going to be big talents and a huge part of their rebuild.
I like it. So I've also gone Fremantle as one of my surprise teams. Now, I had North Melbourne in.
Really?
But I read too much into the preseason game yesterday when they got beaten by West Coast, so I took them out. And I replaced them with Adelaide. So I think they're a team that significantly underachieved last year. The year before that, they should have made finals had it been the AFL. We talked about the Keys moment. But then they dropped down to, I think it was 15th. I think they're really primed for a bigger push this year. They've got a couple of additions in Peatling, but mostly that they're young guys who've got an extra year in them. They're one of those 15 teams that has a shot of making the top 8. Dawson's only going to get better. Michael Annie, the guy off the half-back line, who had a really good season last year, is only going to get better. I think Darcy Fogarty, as he grows into his body a bit more, is going to get even better.
I think Jake Saligo will be the biggest riser in that team. He looks elite in this preseason.
So yeah, I'm really excited for what Adelaide can put out this season. I'm always happy. Competition's great for the neutral, and it's great for the AFL when you have so many teams competing for just 8 spots. But as far as most overrated teams go, I made the mistake last year, but I'm going to say Gold Coast. Now, people are predicting them to actually make the top 8 this year. Last year, I predicted them to make the top 8, and that was a mistake. They barely won an away game. I'm going to say they're an extremely overrated side. They're not going to make the top 8. They're going to be in and around it. But in this state, the team that they have, if you just go through the names on their list, and they've had some pretty big additions. John Noble, Daniel Rioli, then McAndrew looks like he's going to play forward. They really should be competing and playing better football than they currently are. I don't know whether it's a cultural system thing.
Yeah, I think it's a thing where you've never seen yourself win. There's no history of winning. It's really tough to get that started.
But yeah, I'm gonna put it there. I hope for the best that they can push on and finally make finals. But yeah, overrated team Gold Coast. My other overrated team, I've put the Western Bulldogs. Extremely talented list. I mean, your heart pick of Sam Darcy just says that young guy still coming through.
This is a really interesting pick. I want to hear the justification.
And they're a really talented list,
Yep.
and I think a lot of people still expect them with the talent they've got all around the ground to finish top 8 or be competing for top 8. But just what I've seen over the last few years, I don't think they've really been progressing. They've been stagnant. I think this might be the time that they fall off, especially with Bontempelli missing for the first 6 weeks.
And you look at their midfield core, they have Ed Richards, Riley Sanders coming through, but Bontempelli, Treloar and Liberatore are well past 30 years old, each of them.
And obviously McRae left as well, who didn't really get in that midfield mix last year. But I just think they've been stagnating and plateauing for the last couple of years. I think they might just take a step back, which isn't really what you'd expect from a list with this much talent.
Yeah, I don't mind that prediction. Western Bulldogs are a team that they could surprise us this year and finally take that step into the top 4, but they could just as easily drop off.
Yeah.
My underachievers, Carlton,
Yeah.
which you didn't have Carlton in there.
I didn't have Carlton in there.
I just think with all of the injuries they have, I think they've been underachieving as a side even before this. Like, you look at last year, they had a good year, but they have 2 Coleman medalists in their forward line, and they have a 2-time Brownlow medalist and a superstar coming through in Sam Walsh, and they have these superstars in their back line as well. Like, they have such talent, like such high-end talent, and I think Michael Voss is going to have to take a look at how he coaches, because when I watch Carlton play, their defensive system is really poor to me. I'm sure Michael Voss knows more than I do, but they play this sort of zonal way, which just doesn't seem to work. They concede too many goals, and considering the talent that they have in their defensive line, that talent is just put under too much pressure. And I just think with all these injuries that they have this preseason, Jagger Smith, Nick Newman, Sam Walsh not playing to start the year, they have other injuries going around, and I think they're going to struggle. I reckon they could drop as low as 13th, 14th. My other one is Richmond. I reckon they're expected to win 1 or 2 games. They're going to win 0. And this is my main prediction. The 0 wins won't be my main prediction. It'll be percentage less than 50.
Wow.
We're going to see a percentage starting with a 4.
Oh, wow. That's tough.
Which I don't think I've seen in my lifetime.
No, I don't remember ever seeing that. I think even just winning a single game gets you above a percentage starting with a 4.
Yeah.
But yeah, not that I want to see that, but I'm excited to see if your prediction does come true.
Yeah.
But we'll move on to who we think's going to play in the grand final.
I'll start us off. The two teams that I put in my top 4, I think Sydney goes again. No bias there at all. And I think Hawthorn make the charge. It was between Hawthorn and GWS for me. I predicted the grand final to be Sydney GWS last year. This year I predict Sydney Hawthorn. I just think that Hawthorn list, they have all the confidence in the world, and now all the talent in the world that is just developed one more year. I reckon they could win it all. I'm terrified of them, but I'm going to predict Sydney to win it.
I like it. I'm going to go with Sydney as well. I think it's finals, or it's grand final win or bust. I think obviously they have the talent. We talked about it as well. And I'm going to back experience. I'm going to say Geelong.
Don't say that.
I'm going to say it's a Sydney Geelong.
I'm not watching the grand final if it's Sydney Geelong.
I'm going to say Sydney Geelong, 2 teams in my top 4 as well. I think experience is going to get them there. Fair. I think they have the talent. I know they're aging a bit. We've been saying they've been aging for the last 10 years. I'm going to back them to go all the way to the finals.
Also, I know it's not a segment, Dark Horse Brownlow medalist. Dark Horse Brownlow medalist, Max Holmes. If he stays fit, I reckon he's an All-Australian lock. And this guy, there's not a huge amount of people that are dominant Brownlow vote getters at Geelong. They pile together a lot of wins. That guy could win the Brownlow.
I like it.
My prediction for the grand final, one thing I want to note about it before we end this video or have a chat about Supercoach we might do, for anyone that's interested, this is a round 0 matchup. Sydney versus Hawthorn coming up this Friday. This video might be released maybe just before that game or a few days before. What a game we're in for on Friday night. I think it's just going to be fantastic.
I'm just so excited that AFL season's back.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like a couple months after the season where I didn't really want to think about it. Then it sort of leads up and you start seeing preseason videos, 2-kilometre time trials, player interviews. Then the most recent game against Gold Coast, and you get really, really excited. Now I just want it to start.
Yeah.
I need to just get last season out of memory and get straight into this one. I think it'd be really important for the confidence to start off with a win at the SCG against, I guess you could say, a Flying Hawks based off last year.
And look, in terms of Supercoach, we might not have time to discuss it, but what we're going to do is we're going to make a league, and we're going to put a league code on the screen right now. And feel free to join our league or tell us any of your sleeper picks, your super pods for Supercoach.
I like it. And just some final thoughts about the season.
I think the teams that adapt best to all of the big changes that have happened in the off-season and the pre-season with all the injuries, those are the teams that are going to exceed expectations.
I think it's the unpredictability that makes the AFL great. And I know we always have a lot of teams competing for the top 8. It wouldn't be a great season if you didn't. But I don't know if I've ever seen this many teams having the chance to make the top 8. Like, I thought Essendon might fall away, but they've had quite a good pre-season. Like, they're going to push. Like, St Kilda, I'm not really sure where they are, but they might be able to push. And there are those teams that are down there that are really going to push. Adelaide 15th or something last year, like I said, I think they're going to push. Freo 10th, they're going to push.
Yeah, absolutely.
Collingwood didn't finish in the top 8. Their team got better, they're going to push.
I think they could easily make top 4, yeah.
100%. There are so many teams that we think can make... I mean, Freo and Collingwood could easily make the top 4. They didn't finish the top 8 last year. So much talent. For a neutral, this is an awesome season. Like, who's going to emerge as the biggest story of 2025? Let us know down in the comments.
See you in the next one.